Good morning. Welcome to the training webinar. I'm Dale Franks, and if you're watching on YouTube and it's not morning, good, whatever portion of the diurnal cycle you're watching. We were supposed to talk about calendar K-views this week, but my system is going a little wonky, and I'm not entirely sure what is happening. I did notice that there was a 29-hour time difference in some of the time calculations to put up the calendar. And I would understand a 1 or 2 hour time difference, perhaps some time zone setting that needed to be reset or something. A 29-hour time zone difference is more than the number of time zones in the world. So I'm not sure what's happening. I was also having some trouble deleting some things. I keep deleting them and they wouldn't delete. So I'm going to hope that this does not mess up what we're going to talk about today, which is goals. We'll have to come back and look at calendar K-views after I've had the engineering team look at my machine. But last night while I was prepping, it was obvious that the calendar K-view thing wasn't going to work with 29-hour time differences. So I scratched that, and yesterday afternoon I changed it to goals. So we are going to come back and do calendar K-views, but not today. Today is goals. And so with that in mind, let's get right to it. The goal object is one of the more interesting objects that are available in Process Director. One of the things about the goal object is that it does two things. First of all, it allows you to schedule actions to occur on the system. A goal creates a scheduled evaluation of some condition. Based on that condition, the goal sets a system-wide state, which you can query at any time. And it also, if you want, can kick off a process or run a knowledge view that kicks off multiple processes. So the goal object is very interesting, and it relies very heavily on business values to work properly. Now, it doesn't always have to be business values, but that tends to be what you're going to use to make a goal work. So we're going to create a goal here. We're going to call it webinar, and we're going to take a look first at its configuration, and we'll cover the configuration basics. And then we'll move on to some examples of both implicit and explicit actions and goals. And I'll explain what implicit and explicit actions are in just a few minutes. So on the goal itself, when you first create it, as you saw, mine opened up to the execution option screen because that was the last tab I was looking at a few minutes ago before I started the webinar. But this should be where you start off, which is the properties screen. Obviously, you're going to want to put a description here of some sort, just so that you can tell what that goal is. And then you have the group and value picker property, which you should always fill out to make finding the goal a little bit easier. So we're going to do that today. However, I've done this enough so that I'm not sure what we'll just call this sample goal. And that should allow me to find it in the Choose System Variable dialog box in a little bit when I want to start using it. There's one really important property on the property screen, which is this one. Goal is currently active or not active. When you start creating a goal, you're going to keep it not active. When you turn the active switch on, then whatever time functions that you have set up, whatever scheduling you create on the execution options tab, are going to start working. We don't want them to work yet. You usually don't whenever you're in development. So we're going to keep this on not active, but it's important to remember when you want the goal to go live and to begin running through the schedule and to begin running on the schedule you specify, you do have to come back to the Properties tab and you have to turn it back on. If you don't, the goal will never run unless you run it manually. So just remember, when you go live, set goal is currently to active so that it begins working for you. The Execution Options tab is where you configure what the goal is going to do. At the very top is the Execution Options section. And it's hard to talk about this section without talking about the Conditions and Results section. The Conditions and Results section are where you create the conditions that this goal is going to evaluate, whatever they might be. Now, depending on the conditions that you have created here, it's going to affect what your execution options are. For example, do you want this goal to run every time the conditions are met? Or do you only want it to run if the conditions are met and the goal result is different from the previous result? So when you set the schedule down here on evaluation frequency, right now it's set to the default. It'll run every day. So every 24 hours, this goal will pop off and it'll run and do its thing. When it runs, it's going to make the evaluation and it's going to set a goal value. So you can see there's goal value. That's the goal's current value. And then there's the previous goal value, which was what the value was the last time it ran. So do you want the actions to run just if the conditions are met and you don't care whether the goal values have changed or not? You want it to run every time? That's fine, you can, but you can also limit that so that if the goal will run, but it will check if your conditions are met, it will check to see what the previous goal value was. And if the two values are the same, well, then it won't run, because what it's looking for are for the conditions or one of the conditions to be true and the result to be different. So this provides one of the limiting factors for when the goal runs and whether we're going to actually execute any of these execution options that appear in the condition results tab. The execute property determines whether they're going to run if they're going to run all of the actions whose conditions are met, or whether they're going to run only the first action whose conditions are met. This is very similar to how a business rule works, where you determine whether you want to run the first or whether you want to run all actions where the conditions are met. So, I might have 5 different evaluations going on down here, and I need to determine whether I want to run, let's say all 5 of them are true. Well, do I want to run all 5 of them? Or do I only want to run the first one that's true? And once I've done that, then I'll skip the next ones. So you can actually make some very complicated conditions and results down at the bottom of the screen in the Conditions and Results tab or section, and determine whether you want them all to run or some of them to run, or determine whether you want them to run in a specific order and just stop at the very first one. So this gives you a lot of flexibility in the conditions that you create, but it's super important that you match the conditions here in the execute options section with the actual conditions you run and how you want those conditions to run. We're going to do sort of mutually exclusive conditions for this goal. And so therefore, we're just going to run anytime the conditions are met. And we're only going to run, and we're going to run all of the actions because there's only going to be 2 actions and they both can't be true. They're going to be mutually exclusive. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these 2 items. Now, in our case today, we can't really talk about the conditions without some understanding of what it is that we're trying to measure. Now, goals are kind of weird in that they are universal objects. You can't really tie them to a form. So you're limited in the conditions that you create to those conditions that are kind of global to Process Director. That's why a lot of times we use business values, because business values are generally sort of global values as well, and we evaluate these business values. One of the nice things about goals is that when used in conjunction with business values, you can actually monitor on a scheduled basis the state of data on some external system. And if the data changes on that external system, then on a scheduled basis, you can evaluate that change and set a system state in Process Director. And that system state enables you to refer to that goal and its result so that you can either start actions in Process Director, so you can kick off processes. We'll see an example of that. Or based on that state, you can change the way that a process works while it's running. You can, for example, use a goal value in a needed when condition on a process timeline activity. And based on the value of that goal, that activity may or may not run based on the current state of that goal. We refer to that as an implicit action. The process timeline is going to run. It's not dependent on the goal really in any way for its operation, except that you can change how the process timeline works implicitly simply by referring to the value of a goal. So if you have a needed when condition, for example, if the goal value is 1, then maybe we want to run that activity. If it's 2, then we can skip that activity. So that provides an implicit action. An explicit action with a goal is when we actually kick off a process. We do have the ability to run a process or run a knowledge view to kick off an explicit action in Process Director. So if we want to run a process based off of a goal, then we can do that, and that is called an explicit action. So we're going to look at an example of both an explicit action, kicking off a process based on the value of the goal, and we're going to look at an implicit action, changing how a process works. And by the way, it's not just a process. I mean, you could change some information that's displayed on a form, for example. You could show or hide a form section based on the state of the goal, or you can, in fact, simply show an object on the form or change the state of an object on the form, which we'll look at in a few minutes, based on the value of your goal. We'll come back to this section and we'll actually look at a real world example of this running in just a few moments as we go through some of these examples. At the very bottom, or next to the bottom, the last thing that you actually configure on the form is your evaluation frequency. You can set the evaluation frequency to n number of minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, and years. Now, minutes gets us into a tricky area because remember, Process Director is not a real-time system. It is near to real-time, but it's not real-time. On a very busy system, you can get closer to real-time than you can on a system with very few users because of the way Process Director handles scheduling. There's no stopwatch that's ticking away that says, okay, if I set this to, 10 minutes, what is not going to happen is that this goal runs and then some timer starts counting down from 10 minutes to 0. And then when it reaches 0, it kicks off again. In Process Director, timed activities are kicked off by runs of a timer routine that exists in Process Director. This timer routine is most often kicked off by user activity. As users complete tasks at various times, it invokes the timer check. And what the timer check does is it goes through this long list of everything that's timed on the system and says, okay, this thing last ran at this time. It's now this time. Have 10 minutes passed since the thing last ran? And if the answer is yes, then it'll run it again. On a really busy system with lots and lots of users, Process Director gets very close to real time. If you constantly have users on there completing tasks and doing all the things that users normally do on the system, then the timer routines are going to get kicked off on a fairly routine basis. Now, the trouble with the timer routines is, A, they take an irreducible amount of time to complete. The more timed things that you have on your system, so you may have wait tasks running in a bunch of processes. You may have a bunch of goals running that are all timed. Well, the more things that you have on the system, the longer it takes for the system to go through and check all of those times to be sure that it's matching the timers. I have seen systems that have so many timed activities that running the timer check alone takes about 20 minutes. Now, once a timer check gets kicked off, you can't start another timer check, because if that was the way it worked, then every time a user did something that would invoke the timers, the timer would have to restart like every 2 or 3 minutes. That would obviously be bad. It would obviously use a lot of system resources. So once a timer is invoked, it's going to run for as long as it takes to go through all of the timer checks. That could be 2 minutes, it could be 5, and it could be longer. I've seen it, like I said, up to 20, 22 minutes or something like that on a system that just had hundreds and hundreds of timer checks on all kinds of process timelines, had a whole bunch of goals. So those timers took a long time to run. But what that means is that you can never expect those timers, let's say it takes 22 minutes to run the timers on a system. Then the timers are only going to be able to run maximum every 22 minutes. So basically about 3-ish times an hour, the timers are going to run. And as soon as the timer completes, then it's eligible to be kicked off again, and everything that was missed in the first timer run, when that started 20 minutes ago, can now run in this current run of the timer check. But that implies that for that 20-minute time period, and again, it may be shorter on your system, it may be 5 minutes. So if it's 5 minutes, then that timer is only going to be able to run how many 5-minute increments are in an hour? 12. So it's going to run 12 times an hour. So the closest you're going to get on a system like that, even if you have a whole bunch of users, is within 5 minutes of the scheduled time. So these repetition times, when you get down into minutes, it gets awfully tricky. Over and above that, if you're on a system that doesn't have a lot of users and there's not a lot of user activity on the system, so you're a small organization, you may have like 100 users, right? And in any given day, 10 of those users might go on. So maybe once an hour, somebody is on the system doing something that would kick off the timer checks. Well, that's a little too long to go between timer checks. So what we do, especially if you're on a cloud system, but if you're on a on-premise system, you should do this as well. We run all of the timer checks on a 20-minute schedule. We do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, we need to run all of the activity checks to be sure that process timelines are advancing the way that they're supposed to advance. And we need to keep IIS alive, because IIS will time out and shut down every 20 minutes. And so if nobody touches the system for 20 minutes, then when you go back and you log on, it's going to take a while for the system to wake up. It's got to wake up IIS before it can serve you any pages. And then things are going to start working the way that they're supposed to start working. But we want to keep IIS alive during business hours. So from about, for a cloud customer, given the fact that we're in multiple time zones, from about 6 a.m. to about 6 p.m., we're running the activity check every 20 minutes so that we keep the system alive. We keep IIS up and running, and all of the timers get run on a 20-minute basis. So when you're looking at minutes, anything below 20 minutes is going to get super iffy. So a 10-minute repetition may simply not happen. It may happen every 20 minutes or every 25 minutes, but 10 minutes is really cutting it fine if you're on a system that doesn't have a lot of users, but that does have a lot of timers, because the timers take an irreducible amount of time to run. And while they're running, we're not going to kick off another timer check. So just keep that in mind. Hours tend to be a better schedule than minutes, because once you get below 30 minutes, you're going to get real iffy, and you're not going to really be close to that schedule. So that's just a note on how scheduling and how timers work in Process Director. You have a couple of other options for the timing. You can actually set when you want the repeat interval to start. So technically, it would be possible to say, I want this to begin on October of 2025. So I want this to begin on October, we'll say October 23rd. Now, if you set this, you can then go back to the Properties tab, and you can set this goal as active. Nothing is going to happen with this goal until October 23rd, 2025. After 12 o'clock in the morning on 10/23/25, this goal will now start operating. But you're going to kick that repeat interval down the road for starting. So you can set it as active, but in this case, it's not going to go active for, 6 months now, 7 months. So you have that ability. Most of the time, you're not setting it 6 months in advance. You're setting it like a week in advance. So you want it to start running next week. And once it starts running, this repeat interval starts at goes away. There is the days of lead time. So let's say that I said, all right, I want to start this on 1 April. Well, let's go back to today. So let's go back to today, and let's say I want to start this on, let's say Friday, the 4th of April. So I want to start on the 4th of April. However, what I really want to do is kick off a process that will be done by the 4th of April, and it may take me 3 days to do that process. So I need to give some lead time. So we'll put a 3-day lead time on. So the goal is actually going to run not on 4/4/2025, but it's actually going to run 3 days earlier. One of the ways that this is useful is, let's say that you have a report that needs to be done on the 1st of every month. And so that's my target date, 4/1/2025, to get that report done. But I know it's going to take 3 days or 3 business days to actually get that report finished. So rather than waiting until April the 1st to run, I'm going to give it 3 days of lead time. So it's actually going to run on, and how many days has March? 30 or 31? Let's count back 3 days. It has 30. So if I say I'm going to start it on the 1st of April, 1, 2, 3, it's going to count back, and it's actually going to start off on the 28th of April, and it's going to do the evaluation. And if you have a process that you need to kick off for this, it's going to kick it off on the 28th, so that hopefully by the 1st, that process is done completely. And then every month, at the 1st of every month, let's say you have this repeated every 1 month. And you're going to start it off on the 1st of April. Then great. When we get to the 1st of May, it's actually going to count back 3 days from the 1st of May, and that's when it's going to start. So April 29th or whatever, the 29th, 30th, 31st. Yeah. So it'd start on the 29th. Or does April only have 30 days either? I never can remember the little rhyme. But in any event, we'll go back 3 days before the 1st to kick off our process. So that gives us the lead time we need to complete it, in this case, by April 1st, rather than kick it off on April 1st. Now, for us, we don't have to worry too much about it because we're going to evaluate everything now, which is what makes this button very handy. Anytime that I want to just independently run it, and we're going to be running it a lot today, we can click the Evaluate Now button to kick off the evaluation whenever we want it. We can just do that manually. It's not a fake evaluation. It's not a test. It is a real evaluation. When you click Evaluate Now, the things that you have specified to happen are going to happen in the goal. So let's take a look at some examples of creating such a goal and how it would work. So we're going to leave this goal for right now. And we're going to go take a look at some data that I've created for the webinar. So let me pin the content list and let's go into this folder here. So I have some customer data from a couple of different companies. These are, of course, fake companies, but here they are. Now, we want to run two types of goals. We want to run a goal that does an implicit action, and we want to run a goal that does an explicit action. And so I've created a tiny little database that will enable us to do that. So I have a short list of customers here, and I have two columns as to whether or not this is a new customer. And if it is, there's some processing I need to do to turn them from a new customer into an, I guess, existing customer. And then I've got tickets in progress. Do these customers have support tickets that are running on the system currently? Both of these are just Boolean figures. It's either 1 or 0. 1 means yes, 0 means no. And so I'm going to create goals that will allow me to do different things based on the values in these two columns, the new customers and ticket in progress columns. Now, to do that, I'm going to need some business values to make this work. So I've got 3 of them here. One is just customer data. And this customer data just pulls back all of the data for my new customers. So any of the customers where the new customer value is 1, where they're a new customer, it's going to pull back their data. So you can see here it's going to pull back 7 of the 10 customers that I have in the data. So there are 7 new customers. And I'm pulling a couple of things. I'm actually pulling their data. So the customer ID, the customer name, their new customer, and ticket in progress. But I'm also going to pull this second little type of data here. It's not actually data from the database. It is the number of database rows. When you're using a goal, this number of database rows becomes super important for how you want to evaluate your data. And this is about the most convenient thing possible when it comes to determining conditions that you're going to set on a goal. We'll take a look at that in a minute. I have a second one here called support tickets. And again, this is just going to pull the tickets in progress where or it's just going to actually pull records where ticket in progress equals 1. I'm just pulling the ticket in progress field. And again, I'm using the number of database rows, which in this case will be 7 when this business value runs. And then I have ticket customers here, where I have just the names and the IDs of customers who have tickets in progress. This is pulling data. And so this is something I'm actually displaying in a form. It's the support tickets that tell me how many support tickets I have. And the reason that I've built these three business values is so that I can run two different goals. The first goal is a goal that will run an explicit action. And when we talk about explicit action, what we mean is that we are actually going to run a process or run a knowledge view. We're going to invoke something on Process Director and make it happen. I think I've in another context, I think I've demonstrated a goal before where I kick off a process to process invoices. And so it just kicks off, it runs a knowledge view that kicks off a process for each row in the knowledge view. In this case, I'm kicking off the process directly. So all I need to know is whether the number of new customers, let's look at this will be a little easier to read. I need to see if the number of new customers coming from that customer data knowledge view, I just need to know if that number is greater than 0 or if that number equals 0. Those are the only possible options. I either have no new customers or I have, one or more. So both of these are mutually exclusive. So if I have new customers, then what I want to do is I want to run a process. And this process is called the customer process. It's this process down here, and it has its own form. So it's going to kick this off if this goal finds more than 7 records. Now, or more than 0 records. Now, what I've got it set to do here is to actually give me the number of new customers in this result. So it's a system variable. I'm basically just invoking the business value with the system variable. And let me open up Visual Studio Code so that we can see that system variable. And let's get rid of that. And we'll go to a new text file. And there we go. That's my system variable. So it's the business value. I'm looking at the customer data business value, and I'm just pulling back the new customer's value. It is the number of rows in the business value. So that will actually set the value of my goal as to however many new customers that I have. Now, the last time I ran this was this morning at 8:17 a.m. and it returned 7. Previously, it returned 0, and the reason that it returned 0 was because, well, I was testing it. So if I invoke this business value, if there are new customers, it is going to set a result, and it's going to set the result to however many new customers I have, which in this case is 7. And then it's going to kick off that customer process. If I don't have any new customers, then it's going to set the result as 0, and it's not going to do anything else. It's only going to set the result as 0. So my process is only going to fire if I have any new customers. So before we take a look at that, I'm going to change my workspace to my user profile. So as you can see right now, nothing is happening. I have no processes running on my system, nothing in my task list. Great. So let's go back to the goal and let's evaluate the goal and see what happens. Now, we've already looked at the business values, so we know it is going to return a value of 7 because we've already tested that out and seen it. So there we go. I returned a goal value of 7. Great. So let's take a look at my task list. User profile. That's what I'm looking for. So there we go. There's my task list. I have a customer form that is running, and I have an activity assigned in that process as a task that's assigned to me. So I can open it up. And by the way, one of the reasons why we were bringing back customer data is so that I could show this customer data in in my system. So I've got some SQL statements that will actually go in and alter this customer data. So these customers, approval is required. So I'm just going to say, well, let's do 3 of these, and I can update each one of these. Ooh, this update is taking a long time. I wonder why that is. There we go. Usually the updates happen super quick like that. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and close this. If I reopen it, I only have 3 customers left, and that's great. Right now, I'm just going to go ahead and cancel that process. I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to go back to my goal, and I'm going to run it again. So our previous goal value was 7. Our current goal value is 7. If we evaluate it again, now my goal value has changed to 3. Once again, if we go back to my user profile, I've got tasks assigned. So I have used a goal to just kick off this action. Of course, we all know that I have 3 new customers here. So great. I can just set all of these customers to approved. I can update each of their records. I can complete my task. It's done. I have nothing else running on my system. And now we can go back to our goal again. And now we can evaluate it. And our goal value returned 0. Because it returned 0 and it set the result only for that run of the goal, then if I go back to my user profile, there's nothing, again, running on my system. I have no tasks assigned. So based on the number of new customers that I have in some external database somewhere, I can kick off a process on a scheduled basis in Process Director to process these new customers to ensure that whatever onboarding we need to do for new customers is done. So what I'm doing is checking some external data to invoke customer onboarding explicitly via a goal. Now, implicitly, I'm doing something else. So let's take a look at this goal. All I'm doing with this goal is setting a result. There are no actions being taken. This is an implicit goal. It only does this result setting, and it doesn't invoke any processes. However, based on the value of this goal, I can see different things, or I can make a process work differently inside Process Director. So let's take a look at my tickets form and let's run it. Okay, I'm a little surprised that it's taking that long to run since I've done this earlier, but notice it says support status is red. So let's go back and look at my goal. So support status is red, and in point of fact, that is my goal value. It is red currently. So if I close some of these tickets, so we'll close those 3 tickets, and let's refresh our form. Let's note a couple of things. A, I only have 4 tickets here. Now, if I'm running these 4 tickets and support tickets greater than 2 and less than or equal to 4, so if I have 2, 3, or 4 support tickets, my status is supposed to be yellow. Here is where we learn the one huge difference between goals and other evaluated objects in Process Director. We are used to evaluating an object and getting whatever its current value is. So if I invoke a system variable, current date time, okay, it's going to give me the current date time. It's going to do that evaluation right then and there. If I invoke a business value and I say, give me, fill a form field with this business value, it's going to query the database and it's going to return that data, and it's going to give me whatever is currently sitting in the database. So we're used to things happening in this case, in real time. We're reflecting the current state. That's not how goals work. Goal evaluations only occur on the specified schedule, or of course, if you invoke them manually. That's it. So whenever you look for a goal result, you're going to see whatever the result was that was set during the last goal evaluation. So technically, using this condition, support tickets are greater than 2, and they are less than or equal to 4. That is a yellow status. But that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing red. Because whenever you evaluate a goal, the only thing you're evaluating is what is the current value of that goal. This goal's current value is red. So the fact that I have now changed all of this, and we can close this ticket here and we can refresh the form. Now I'm down to 3 tickets. This is definitely yellow status, but it still says red. And it is going to continue to say red until this timer expires, or until I come over here and I click Evaluate Now. My goal value has now changed to yellow. And now, if I refresh the form, I will see my support status is yellow. And obviously, if I am down to just 1 ticket, so if I close those tickets and refresh the form, it's going to be yellow until I hit Evaluate Now. Now my status is green, and now when I load the form, I'll see the support status as green. So you need to keep in mind, and sometimes this still even trips me up whenever I'm looking at it, you need to keep in mind that I am not invoking the goal via a system variable or via a condition or whatever. I'm not invoking the goal. I'm returning whatever the goal says its value is right now. So what that means is that whenever you're doing implicit actions, and this is a very simple implicit action, I'm just changing the color of a status thing on the form to green, yellow, and red. Okay, that's fine. You can do that. But remember, this is only running with an evaluation frequency here of 30 minutes. So it's only going to update every half hour. Well, I might have a whole bunch of tickets and a whole bunch of people working on tickets, and I have new tickets coming in and old tickets going out. So this is not going to be, because of how rapidly the ticket status evolves. I'm solving old tickets. I have new tickets coming in from customers. I have some of those I'm going to solve. Some of those I'm going to have to set aside. This is support tickets are a great example of something that can be very dynamic. And it sounds good to say, well, here's what I'd like. I'd like to, to set my support status based on the number of tickets. Okay, you can do that, but for this particular type of dynamic environment, a goal might not be your best shot at doing that. In that case, you might just want to, on the form, you probably just want to invoke the business value directly and don't want to run it through the goal, because this is one of the kind of weaknesses of a goal whenever we're looking at doing things through implicit action, which is how far behind is that goal. In this case, the closest, it could be up to 30 minutes behind. Is that enough time to effectively show me, in this case, a status, or to determine how I want a process timeline to run? So you have to think very carefully about the context in which you're going to use the goal for an implicit action. It is best used for a less dynamic environment, one in which whatever thing that you're evaluating, it may change, but it will change slowly over time. And that would make it more receptive to being used in a goal as an implicit action. Remember, with an implicit action, all we're doing is we're referring to the goal's value to make something happen right now in real time. And so it gets a little tricky sometimes to determine whether I need to run this off of a goal or whether I need to run it off of a business value. The advantage of a goal is that because it is only evaluated on its schedule every 30 minutes, every hour, whatever it may be, it only makes those database hits every 30 minutes or hour or day. If I'm going to invoke a business value for this status up here, this currently green status, every time I open this form or every time I reload this page, it's going to invoke that business value and it's going to go and hit the database. Now, it may not always go and hit the database. In a data source, you have the ability to cache the data for some amount of time. So maybe you want to cache the data for 30 seconds. Now, by the way, data caching for like 30 seconds, that works. That works just fine. Data caching is not working on a timer. It actually, that caching gets checked every time you invoke the business value. So you can set a 5-second or 10-second or 30-second cache on your data if you're in a really dynamic environment. And at least you're only hitting the database every 30 seconds, right? You're sending the same query every time to the database. And if you have a 30-second cache, then if you send the same query, it won't go back and pull it from the database again. It'll just feed you whatever's in the cache. That's resident in memory for 30 seconds. And so you get an instantaneous response, but you're still hitting the database potentially every 30 seconds. Whereas with this goal, you're hitting it once every 30 minutes. So you really do have to think very carefully, considering the constraints we talked about before, about how anything smaller than 30 minutes is going to be super iffy. And really anything smaller than an hour could be super iffy depending on your system. So you got to think, am I going to be able to run this goal with the frequency that makes it useful to show me a status or to determine how a process timeline works? And that's a question that you just have to answer with, how dynamic is your environment? That's a judgment call. Now, for explicit actions, you don't really have that worry because it's the goal itself that is invoking the action. So whatever schedule that you've decided to place it on, that's probably going to be fine because it is going to run on that schedule, and based on the state of the data, it is either going to start an activity or start a process or run a knowledge view and perhaps conceivably start many processes. And you never have to worry then about sort of timing and the dynamic nature of your environment. So with that said, let's just go ahead. Now that we've seen it work, let's just quickly throw together an explicit and an implicit action. So we have our support tickets. Actually, before we do that, let me refresh my data because I think I have turned everything back to 0. So I'm going to check out my spreadsheet and I'm going to upload the original again. And let's upload that new version and let us check it back in. Let's quickly check our business values super quick. Let's test this one. Great. We're back to 7 results displayed. So I'm going to assume that everything is fine. We're back to 7 tickets in progress. We are good to go. 7 customers displayed who have tickets. Great. Now we have the state of our data. I have 7 tickets in progress, and I have uh, I have 7 customers who are new customers. So let's go and do an explicit and an implicit action goal. So we're going to kind of replicate these, but I think we'll do something a little bit different. So let's create a new process timeline. We actually, if this is going to be explicit, we need a process timeline to kick off. So we're going to kick off a process timeline, and we're just going to call it explicit TL. And I can just create a user activity. We'll call it activity 1. And that's really all I need. I just need to kick off a timeline from a goal. So let's create a new goal. We'll call it the goal. Where's goal? I guess it's under G. And we will call this the explicit goal. And we'll need to come back here and group this in the value picker. Although I don't think I'm actually going to pull this out of the value picker. So this is not super necessary. I forget what I called the previous goal that I created. I created this one here. I called it webinar. What? Sample goal. There we go. That's the one that I want. So we'll go back up here to explicit goal. We will set this to sample goal so I can find it in the choose system variable dialog box. And we can now go to our execution options. So we're going to run this with the conditions are met. And again, we're going to have mutually exclusive conditions. So the execute in my case doesn't matter. So first condition that's met is fine. So let's click to create our condition. So go in, and before I do this, I need to be sure what the goal training, that is the group and value picker. That's going to make my life a lot easier. So let's go back to my explicit action. Let's add our 2 actions again, and we can create our condition. So we're looking for a business value. So business values, where are they? Right there. And it's called goal training. So goal training, and we'll go with customer data. Did I pick that correctly? Business values, goal training, customer data. Oh, there we go. New customers. So I'm checking the new customers field on the goal, or on the business value, and that should return to me 7 as the number of new customers. And so I'm going to check to see if this number is greater than 0. Now, if the number of new customers is greater than 0, and we can now, by the way, just go ahead and evaluate now. Well, I need to set the value. So this is a business value. So BV colon, customer data dot new customers. And I need a squiggly bracket after that. Let's evaluate that now. BV customer data, new customers. Okay, fine. I've typed it wrong. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to copy and paste it. So we'll go back to my explicit goal. Oh, I didn't save it. It's really important to save stuff. So I'm sorry, going to have to recreate this condition. Add condition. So business values, goal training, customer data, new customers. Okay. And it needs to be greater than 0. Okay. We'll set this result here, which is our customer data, new customers. And for the second one, we'll just say if it equals 0. So once again, we'll pull our business value. Business values, goal training, customer data, new customers. And if that equals 0, then we will set our result to 0. So it's still not evaluating. I don't have a process set. So let's change this to set result only for the time being. And let's evaluate now. And let's update. Now we can evaluate. And I come back with 7. Really important to save things before you try to evaluate them. So now I've got these values, and if I had no customers, presumably, that would be 0. Now, I'm going to keep this one to set the result only because I don't want to start anything. But here, I do want to run a process, and in this case, I want to run my explicit timeline if I have that many customers. So basically, I'm just replicating what we had done before, where it's just going to kick off this explicit timeline that I just created. So if I hit update now and save it, everything should be set the way that I want it. And if I hit evaluate now, my goal is run. My goal value is 7. Let's go back and look at my task list. And I don't have anything running. Hold on. What have I done here? So let's go back to our explicit timeline. First of all, I don't have any active timelines running. So let's go back to my goal. Execution options, perform the section, run process, explicit TL. Let me update it again, although it should have worked there. And there we go. The goal has been updated. It's 7. And it did not kick off my process. This may be part of the problem that my system has been having since yesterday. And they haven't been able to take a look at it yet. I'm having caching issues on this system. And so this is not working the way that I expect it to work. So let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to try to pull this onto documentation. Now, documentation is on a bleeding edge version of Process Director. So I tend to not like to use this server, but this may be a requirement this time. So let's pop open the content list. And I do have all of my objects in here, but I don't have that training process. So let me just go to training here. Let me go to training webinar. Let me export this. And let me see if this is the caching issue on my system or whether it's just that I'm a fool. And let us import at goals PDZ onto documentation. There we go. Looks like everything imported correctly. So let's go in here to goals. Let's go to webinar. Let's go to explicit action. And let's run this goal again. So it has never run. So let me evaluate. History 7, great. Let me go to user profile. User profile. Okay, well, be that way. Ah, there we go. Finally. Ah, there we are. Explicit. Boy, I have a lot of stuff running on this system. Um, Let me kill all of this other stuff. Uh, well, I don't see it down here, but that's fine. There's my explicit timeline. It's running on this system. So I am not a fool. There is a problem on the training system. So there's no form for this, obviously. So we're looking at the default one that's built into Process Director, but I can go ahead and complete that form. And I guess it'll take a second to complete. And there we go. If I refresh my task list, I have nothing going on there. I think I can cancel all of these processes, however. Yes, I do want to do that. And so we'll kill all of these. So yeah, I don't know what is going on training, but fortunately it doesn't appear to be working on documentation. So does that clear off my task list? No, it does not. I have all of these activities running, but well, we'll have to live with it. I'm not going to go in and open up all of those things by themselves. So there we go. There is my explicit goal. It works. I mean, I guess we can go in and be sure that it works. So let's go back to our form. And we'll go back over here to customer. We'll run this customer form. And oh, these forms open really big on this system. I need to change the default form size here. So we'll go ahead and we'll approve all of these again. Yes, 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 yes. And then we'll update them. And I guess it's the first one that takes the longest. So update, 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 update. Let's refresh our form. There we go. I have now no new customers on the system. And so just to confirm that when my explicit goal runs and I evaluate now, it returns a 0. And so obviously, if I go back to my user profile, I have the explicit goal is not running. So we are good to go with that. So for the implicit action, we'll take a look at our tech support goal. And I think we can go back to training with this one. So we will go back to our implicit action. And this time we will create an implicit goal. So we'll create a goal and we'll call this implicit goal. And I forget what I called it. I think I called it sample goal. However, so this I will need for the implicit action because we'll have to set something up. So that's good. We'll go over here. We'll do it when conditions are met. And again, we're just going to, well, now we're going to have multiple conditions. So we're going to recreate those same conditions that we saw previously. So I want to return only the first action whose condition is met. And I don't care if the goal result differs from the previous result. We're just going to do an evaluation, and every evaluation, we're going to return a status. So let's create our first condition, and we'll go in here and we will go back to business values, and this time we're going to use our goal training, and we're going to look at support tickets. And we need just the number of tickets because it's only going to return the number of tickets. So if the number of tickets is less than 3, so 1 or 2, then we're going to set the result as green, and we're only going to set the result. Remember, this is an implicit knowledge view or an implicit goal. So we're not going to run anything. All we're going to do is set results. We're going to evaluate those results to determine how something inside Process Director is going to work. So for this second one, I now need to add the condition. So we'll look again at our goal training business value. We'll look at support tickets. So here, if the number of tickets is greater than 2, and we're going to need an and condition here, and the number of tickets and business values, goal training, support tickets, and less than or equal to 4. So we have to have an and condition here because now we can't just go everything that's less than this or everything that's more than that. We have this middle that we have to take care of. So we need to find a result that is greater than 2, but is less than or equal to 4. So basically, this will give us a value of 3 or 4 to return true. And in that case, we'll just go with yellow. And now with our last condition, we can once again go with goal training, support tickets. And if it's greater than 4, that will return true. And we will set a status there for red. Now, the nice thing about this one is we don't have any other object that we have to refer to. We don't have to worry about it starting anything. All we have to do is evaluate it. And let's update it before we evaluate it. Now that it's updated, we can evaluate it. And our goal value is red. We expect that because we had all of those support tickets. We've already seen that. We know we have 7. So we're well above 4. All right, well, I've got the goal. It's going to evaluate, every however long we've decided that we want to evaluate. So let's show some implicit actions. So we're going to create a process timeline here, and we're going to call this the implicit TL. And we're going to create a couple of activities. 1, 2, 3. So now I have 3 activities that might occur. And I'm going to want to change how my process timeline is going to work based on those goals. And whether the goal value is red, yellow, or green. So there's a couple of things that I can do here to make this happen. So I've got 3 activities. One of these activities is my regular activity. It might be assigned to me. Hint, they're all going to be assigned to me, so I don't have to log in and log out of someone. But let's say that I have my ticket status is yellow. So one of the things that happens, especially for me, because I'm working in California. So by the time I come trotting into my office at 8:30 or so every morning, most of you have been at work for a couple of hours, or at least an hour, before I get in, which means that you have submitted tech support tickets. And so the busiest time for me, I have to block out a schedule of time in the morning. Fortunately, there are other people who handle tech support tickets. So I probably am not even doing a majority of tech support anymore. But in the morning, when I first get in, there are a couple of tech support customers that our implementers generally are not going to handle. Uh, Either I have to personally handle them or one other designated person has to handle support tickets for those customers. They're all East Coast customers. So by the time I get here, they're getting ready to go to lunch. They've put in their support tickets. So I'm going to have, who knows, yesterday morning, 8:30, I popped it open. There were like 3 support tickets. On Monday, it was like 7. So depending on how many support tickets there are first thing in the morning, either I'm going to have a lot of work that day, or hopefully some of them are support tickets that I can just dole out to somebody else. So let's say that in the morning, depending on how many support tickets are sitting in the queue, because that's my busy time. So maybe I want to set up a goal that looks every morning to see how many support tickets do we have. And depending on how many support tickets we have, I'm going to assign a task to different people, ultimately multiple people, to look at those support tickets and begin handling them. And the more support tickets we have, the more people that I want looking at those support tickets and handling them so that we can clear out that morning queue. So I might run that goal every morning at 8 o'clock or 8:30, and depending on how many support tickets are sitting in that queue, I'm going to want to assign multiple people perhaps to look at the queue. So let's take activity 1. Now, activity 1 is just going to be, we're just going to call it green status. Okay, and by the way, I'm going to run all these in parallel. I'm not going to make them run right after another. So I have green status. Now, green status is assigned to one person, timeline initiator in this case. So green status is assigned to one person. And so if there are 1 or 2 tickets, then this is going to run. What if there are more tickets? Whatever the number is, we arbitrarily have 1 through 7, but that could vary. But whatever it is, whatever yellow status is, I'm now going to have a second activity. And I'm going to assign it, it'll say timeline initiator, but let's assume I'm assigning it to a different person. And I will call this yellow status. And I need a needed when condition. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and check my goal. So we'll go to goals and sample goal and implicit goal. That's the one that I want. And we can use equal for this. I'm going to use contains simply because it's a little more forgiving. But if the implicit goal contains red, or, and here I have to add another condition, the implicit goal contains yellow. So goals, sample goal, implicit goal. Contains yellow. And those are my 2 conditions for when this activity is needed. So if the goal is red or yellow, we're going to kick off the yellow status activity. And then finally, activity 3, which we're going to call, completely by surprise, red status. And we'll create the condition for that to run if the goal is in red status. And we'll just put in contains red. Okay, so now I have a process timeline. It has 3 parallel activities, one of which will always occur. Green status is always going to happen. Yellow status will occur if the status of the goal is yellow or red, which means it's going to assign a second person a task to handle tech support tickets. And if it's red status, I'm now going to assign a third person to handle tech support tickets. Now, previously we talked about living in a dynamic environment and how goals aren't great for living in a dynamic environment. Well, in this case, we're not worried about a dynamic environment. We're worried about a particular state of the tech support queue at 8 o'clock in the morning, let's say. And however many tickets are in that queue at 8 o'clock, that's going to determine how many people that morning we are going to assign a task to handle tech support tickets. It could just be one person, it could be two, it could be a full three, depending on how many tickets that we have. And in this case, I can have all of these different processes running in tandem with each other, so they can all run in parallel rather than having to run in sequence, and it will just assign whoever needs to be assigned to this task based on that goal. Now, we already know for this goal that our current status is red, right? We saw that. So there's our goal value. So it's 8 o'clock in the morning. The goal says there are 7 people assigned or 7 customer support tickets waiting to be handled. So now we can just go ahead and run this implicit timeline process. And now it's running, and it's going to show me a form that I don't particularly want to see. Although, just so that you can see, this is the red status timeline. I'm actually assigned to 3 different tasks. So let's actually look at the timeline itself and look at its properties of the timeline instance. So here we go. I have 3 activities running now. Green status, yellow status, and red status are all running concurrently in this process timeline, which we are going to cancel at this point. And we'll just confirm that my goal works by going over here to our tickets form and running it. And we will get rid of 1, 2, 3 tickets. So actually, we need to get rid of 4 tickets. I want to have 3 tickets left. So we will refresh. There we go. I've got 3 tickets left. So it's 8 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, and my implicit goal runs. And now I'm in yellow status. And so when my morning check occurs to give people their daily reminder to run the process or to check support tickets, I don't need to open it, do I? I just need to run it. So we'll run it. It's obviously going to want to open that form up for me again, which I don't care about. But as you can see, I'm in yellow status. So that already tells me that this is working the way that it's supposed to work, because if I open up this timeline, I can see that I'm in yellow status here. So my goals are working exactly the way that I expect them to do. So when this process kicks off, based on what my goal status is, it's just going to start and end the appropriate process timelines, or it's going to start the appropriate process timeline activities based on the value of my goal. There are also some other things that you can do that one of the reasons why I wanted to do it on Training System was show you something else. And so we use goals, and this is so simple, and I'm so inordinately proud of it. But this is something that we actually use here at BP Logix. So support. Why isn't it showing me? Am I on training? Yes, I am on training. There it is. Wrong folder. It's this DA notification. So here's what we do here at BP Logix. It's childishly simple, and yet I'm, as I said, inordinately proud of it. So I have an Excel spreadsheet. It's called da.xlsx. And basically, it is a list of dates and a list of email addresses for our various implementers. That's all it is, a list of dates and a list of email addresses for our people. It occurs to me that since this is going to go on YouTube, I can't actually show you the spreadsheet. So we can't actually look at it. But it has two columns. It has a date and it has an email address. That's all it has. So I have a DA notification business value. So that's an Excel spreadsheet. I import it into the system. It creates a little table. And every time I import it, it creates a little table. Now, this Excel spreadsheet we have to make manually because we've got N number of implementers who go on to what we call DA rotation. So if somebody gets a support ticket and the support ticket is, I need some help troubleshooting this process, or I need to have this created or whatever. I need you guys to help me with it. That's a direct assistance engagement. So every day we want to just set up a rotation for all of our implementers. So if we get a DA request in tech support, we can just send that DA request to them every day. Now, a couple of people need to know who is on DA rotation that day. So what those dates are is basically the next month's calendar. And we've gone through and determined who's on PTO for the next month, who's going to be here on what day. And for each one of the days in that calendar, we put in the email address of the implementer who is on rotation that day. Drop dead simple. So for this business value, all we're doing is we are just pulling in, and we can look at the table. This is it. These are the two fields in that table. Assignee, which is the email address of the user, which again, I can't show you because YouTube will block the video for releasing PII information. And the rotation date, which is just, Monday through Friday, who goes on the rotation. That's it. And it only has one property, which is the assignee, which is their email address. And so that's my business value. So I've got a goal that actually doesn't even have a condition on it. And this is one of the other things about goals. I don't need to have a condition. I can just make the goal happen all the time. And in this case, every morning at 8 o'clock, this goal runs and it happens every time. So there's no condition, just every time this runs, it goes into the business value and it passes. Well, I guess this I really do need to show in Visual Studio Code because there's no way we're going to see that whole thing in that tiny little text box. So let's go back here to Visual Studio Code, and this is what we are passing. I really should have just typed in BV there instead of business_value. No matter. It's looking at that DA notifications business value, and it's pulling back the assignee, that is the email address, and it is passing the parameter of the current date. So it's going to run out, grab that business value. It's going to send it whatever the current date is, and it's going to return just the email address of the person who is supposed to be handling the goal for that day. So, and well, I'm going to hide that too. Again, for YouTube purposes. So it is, Joe or John Doe at bplogix.com is, let's say that was today, the email address that was returned, then great. What we're going to do beyond that then is we're going to kick off this process. It's called DA notification. It is a super simple process. It is a notify activity. That's all it is. And it sends notifications to me, to Francis, and to whoever the assignee is today for DA rotation. And it just sends it out to them so that they can get a notification that they're on DA that day. It has its own little email template, in point of fact, that could not be simpler. Just a quick note to let you know that you're on DA rotation duty today. The customization is in the subject where it returns the value of the goal, which is always the email address of the person who is assigned DA request. So the subject of the email will be DA rotation, john.doe@bplogix.com. And that's all it does. But every morning it runs and just automatically goes through the schedule, figures out who's on DA today, and sends them a notification. It was super simple to set up. I think it took me 30 minutes maybe to set it up. It actually takes much longer to go through and figure out who goes in that spreadsheet on what day based on what days off everybody is taking. It takes way longer to do that every month than it did to build the whole thing in the first place. So that is one of the ways that you can use a goal. And this one runs on a daily basis, and it just provides a rotation notification. So goals are real nice to use for this kind of thing, where you just need to either set a universal system state, which is the one last thing that I guess we need to talk about, the idea of the universal system state. Now, that is the one thing that the goal does. And I want to go back down here to goals, I think. So that's the one thing that the goal does, is that the system state for a goal is universal. It is accessible by every object in Process Director, whether you grab it via just straight up system variable, or whether you select the goal as we did here for the implicit timeline, whether you just select it from the Choose System Variable dialog box. Like a business value, it is a global object. It sets a global system state, and that system state can be read from anywhere. Just keep in mind that whenever you're running the goal, it does not evaluate every time you call it. It only evaluates on whatever evaluation schedule you've created in the evaluation frequency. Final note about goals is that we've made some improvements in 6.1.300 to the system variables for goals, not gold, goals. So let's go to the doc, and we are going to go into the system variables guide under implementation and the goal system variable. Prior to 6.1.300, you could only return one thing from a goal via system variable, and that was the value of the goal. We have changed the syntax of the goal system variable. We've added a format equals to it. So we've added a formatter. So in addition to just goal colon goal name, which will return the current value of the goal, with the change in 6.1.300, you can now, if you want to see some other information, put in format equals, and you can see last eval, which is the previous or the most recent evaluation of the goal. You have next eval, last eval is the date time of the previous evaluation, not the result. It's the time that it was evaluated most recently. that alone gives you the result. Format equals last eval doesn't give you a result, gives you the last evaluation date time. Next eval gives you the next date time that we expect to evaluate this goal. And then I have previous value, and that is the goal's previous value before the most recent evaluation. So I can pull that from, basically, I say pull that from, basically, we're looking at this. Those four properties that we see on the history section of the goal definition, we now can pull all of those via the goal system value using this syntax. There was an old syntax that allowed us to grab the previous value. It was called previous underscore value equals 1, yes, or true. We have deprecated that. However, it will work in versions prior to 6.1.300. Of course, what it will not return is the last evaluation and next evaluation dates of the goal. This whole previous value thing is really kind of a violation of the naming conventions that we use in goals and how we use modifiers. So this really should have been a formatter, not a previous value modifier. So therefore, we have rationalized it so it uses the same syntax and it returns all of the values that we can see in the goal definition itself, so that the system variable has become a little bit more useful object for you whenever you're calling goal values via system variable. All right, well, thanks for joining me today. As you can see, I still have something going on wonky on my system, and that wonkiness is why we did not do calendar knowledge use this week. So we're going to go back and do them, as I said at the very beginning, which several of you missed. We are going to go back and do calendar K-views, but we have to figure out why my system is showing a 29-hour time difference for date time controls. Oh, and also why I can't delete things, and yesterday, why I couldn't import Excel spreadsheets. There is something going on my training system, and it needs to be fixed. Fortunately, we were able to go into documentation at least and get past that one hiccup that we saw on my machine. And if we're lucky, by next week, we'll be back to normal. And within the next few weeks, we'll go back and we'll reattack the idea of calendar K-views so that you can see how those work, because that's something we haven't discussed in quite a while. So it's probably high time we got back to it. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week with hopefully a fully operational system, and we'll just keep moving forward. Have a great week. So long.